people suffer from heartbreak? They say they can't live without them? They can't forget? Then listen carefully to what you're about to hear, because this video might not only change your life, but also the lives of those around you. Maybe this is your breaking point. Yes, you couldn't forget either, because there was an individual that was supposed to exist only with them, only through that union. The will wanted it so. Meaning, this pain wasn't just yours. It was the absence of what was supposed to be born from you. The grief of losing your unborn child. You can let go because it is not the person in front of you that you can leave, it's your unborn child. You'll be surprised when you learn the truth. If you're ready, let's begin. What do we know? You thought that signal was sacred. You said that person was your destiny. You believed it was true love. But all of it was just a biological scenario written by nature, and you took the game too seriously. When the illusion collapses, the truth is revealed, and that truth often hurts. This video explores Arthur Schopenhauer's book, The Metaphysics of Love. It unveils the dark will behind love. The video may seem a bit long, but you'll learn everything you need to know about love from Schopenhauer. Watch it until the end. Don't miss a single second, and maybe then you'll understand why you couldn't forget them, why you suffer, and why it doesn't work without them. Millions of people have asked why. They suffered heartbreak, couldn't forget detached from life, started wars, got into fights, wrote the most tragic stories, staged operas, and even ancient people feared they would turn into dragons because of the fire burning inside them, all for one reason. It was called love. Have you ever wondered, what if love isn't what you think it is? What if the feeling you know is actually a trap set by nature? Maybe you didn't even choose them. Maybe it wasn't even your own will that drew you to them. According to Schopenhauer, love is a grand game played for the continuation of the species, and you're just a part of that game. What is love? Why do we fall in love? Do you think there's an answer to all of this? According to Schopenhauer, yes. Let's start with the definition of love. Schopenhauer says love is not a romantic choice. It's a great illusion played by nature to ensure the survival of the species through you. This illusion is called the will to live. The sole characteristic of this will is to want, and what it wants is only itself. We'll explain the concept of will in more detail at the end of the video. But briefly, what Freud calls the unconscious is directly the will here. In Schopenhauer's view, will precedes consciousness and directs it. Love is not a decision of consciousness, but a direct expression of the will to live. The will doesn't lead you to love, but to reproduction. Lovers wish to continue living as this single being through a true union and fusion, because the will within them pursues the longing that the being to be born from them will carry. The person you fell in love with is not who you truly love. They are the parent of the one that was supposed to be born from you. That is why the experience of love at first sight is the spirit of the species speaking through you, because the purpose of love is not love itself, it's birth. And now let's talk about the mask of instinct. Every love story is actually written for a child to be born. The people involved aren't aware of it. Love is the plan of the species, not the individual. Schopenhauer states clearly, the birth of a specific child is the real goal of every love story. It doesn't matter how the couple met, how much they suffered, or what sacrifices they made, because nature stages this entire emotional storm solely to bring that particular individual into existence. The means and methods to reach this goal are of little importance. Even if love is unrequited, the individual may settle for physical pleasure. Yet the main goal is clear: to unite two genetically compatible people and create the most suitable being for the species. Maybe you're thinking deep down, no, she's so beautiful, so intelligent, flawless. Or he's so handsome, there's no one else like him in the world. But Schopenhauer doesn't think like you. According to him, beauty and attraction are illusions. A man doesn't choose beauty, but physical signs of fertility and nurturing. Full breasts, a symmetrical body, youth, these symbolize a woman's fertility and her ability to nourish the newborn. According to Schopenhauer, youth without beauty is still attractive, but beauty without youth is not. Because youth guarantees fertility and a healthy generation, old age weakens this chance. Likewise, when he says, our main preference is directed towards the ages between 18 and 28, it shows that nature directly steers individuals by their reproductive potential. But it's not just about looks. The woman must also have a temperament that complements the man's character. Each individual, in every part and organ of their body, seeks to correct their deficiencies, weaknesses, and deviations through the opposite sex. In other words, to impress a man, you must make him feel, even subconsciously, that you are the species-based complement he is instinctively seeking. Women, on the other hand, are not drawn to facial beauty, but to will, strength, and courage, because what she's looking for is the protector of the future. A woman is won over by a man's strength and associated courage, because these traits signal the existence of strong children and a brave protector. That's why women often fall in love with men who are not physically attractive, but they never fall in love with a man who lacks masculine traits. Because women, guided by their inborn instincts, want their children to have a strong foundation both genetically and in character. Therefore, intelligence, wit, or culture alone are not enough. Schopenhauer even says these can sometimes have the opposite effect on women. Women generally never fall in love with a man who lacks masculine traits. So a man who wants to win over a woman must first appeal to her instinct, strength, security, decisiveness. This is the unconscious choice of the woman for the continuation of the species. According to Schopenhauer, love is a tragedy, because love drives a person toward their opposite. Everyone loves in the other what they lack in themselves. That's why nature guides with opposites to complete what's missing. Schopenhauer puts it like this: the most masculine man will seek the most feminine woman. A man who is physically weak will seek a woman who is strong in those areas. Without realizing it, individuals seek traits that will balance their own flaws. Even the fact that a tall, strong woman isn't attracted to tall, strong men stems from nature's concern of preventing a too bulky race. The aim is not to complete each other, but to balance the genetic structure of the species. And when that aim is achieved, when the child is born, love ends. Infidelity is the disappointment that follows satisfaction. Because once the will has done its job, it abandons the individual. That's the inevitable tragedy. So is there loyalty and fidelity in the nature of love? According to Schopenhauer, men are changeable because nature programs them to constantly spread their genes. After satisfaction, their interest fades and they turn to other women. A man's love decreases significantly the moment he is satisfied. Almost all other women attract him more than the one he has already had, because the man is responsible for spreading his genetic legacy. Women, on the other hand, attach because they are programmed to raise and protect the child after birth. It is especially after that moment that a woman becomes more attached to the man. Nature pushes her to keep the nurturer and protector of the future birth close. In other words, a woman's fidelity increases after the child is born and continues until it grows, while a man's fidelity lasts only until the birth. People fight for love. They suffer, they grieve, and take risks they would normally never dare to take. But why? Just because nature wanted it? Here, Schopenhauer explains the hidden codes of love. According to him, the will is so strong that the individual no longer considers their own interests. One may sacrifice themselves, their honor, property, and health for the sake of love. Schopenhauer compares this to the instinctive behaviors of animals. Just as a parasitic wasp risks death to find a foreign insect larva to lay its eggs in, a human can risk their honor, dignity, money, and even life solely for sexual satisfaction. This sacrifice is not made by the individual's conscious choice, but because the spirit of the species has overtaken them. That the man in love has fallen into the hands of the spirit of the species, is under its control, and no longer belongs to himself. This is the essence of surrender. A hero complains about nothing but love, because it is the species speaking within love. And now comes the peak of the tragedy. Because once the will is satisfied, love fades, and the person, after all that effort, is left disappointed with the pleasure they receive. Schopenhauer explains it like this: every lover will experience a striking disappointment after finally attaining the desired pleasure, and will be surprised to find that what was so passionately desired has done nothing more than any other sexual satisfaction. and thus has not taken them anywhere special. That's why marriages based on love often end in unhappiness, because the will abandons the individual and returns them to their poor reality. When love's mission is complete, the spell is broken and the truth is revealed. So is there such a thing as true love? No. According to Schopenhauer, at best there can be true friendship. When passionate love fades, it can be replaced by genuine friendship. This friendship is no longer driven by instincts, but by the closeness of souls. It arises after the satisfaction of sexual love and is based on the harmony of beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. This feeling often emerges once sexual love has been satisfied. True friendship arises from physical, moral, and intellectual qualities that complement each other. Qualities that once led to the birth of sexual love but, in relationships, become bonds of opposite characters and temperaments. But this is not part of love itself. It is part of its post-evolution. Because the purpose of love is not to make you happy, but to create what comes after you. Perhaps love doesn't even belong to us. Maybe what we call love is the greatest truth hidden from us by the will that defines us. It is not your choice. It is the need of what must be born from you. According to Schopenhauer, the person someone falls deeply in love with is not chosen for themselves, but for a third being that must be brought into existence. Even though it gives the illusion that it is their own desire, they are actually not pursuing their own cause, but that of a third being that must come into existence. That's why that indescribable passion, that blind attachment in love, is not the voice of your own soul. It is the whisper of the species. The species wants only the being it needs to be born, and it uses you as the tool to achieve that. That is why love is both the noblest and the most merciless of feelings. Now let's come to the most critical point of this video. Why can't we forget our love? And why do we suffer heartbreak? Because that love was not just an emotion, it was a sense of duty engraved in us by the soul of the species. According to Schopenhauer, this feeling is born not from the individual's will, but from the will of the species. That's why the failure of love is not just a personal loss, but the interruption of the species' plan. It cannot find any field of effect except in the hearts of the future parents, says Schopenhauer. This means the will was trying to bring you together with that person to ensure the birth of a specific being in this world. And here we encounter again the concept of the will mentioned at the start of the video. Schopenhauer's concept of will is not a conscious preference like I want. On the contrary, it is a blind, irrational, unstoppable force of life and reproduction present in all living beings. This force precedes consciousness, shapes it, and directs it. So when we say, the will tried to bring you together with them, it doesn't mean your heart or mind made a choice. The will here is a natural force that acts without your awareness, using you. It's like Freud's concept of the unconscious, but broader. It operates not on an individual level, but on a species-wide level. You think you are in love, but in truth, the will is pushing you toward the person who ensures the most suitable genetic match, because its goal is not your happiness, but the continuation of the species. The will brings you together, completes its mission once your child is born or once you unite, and then leaves you. That's why, when love ends, you wonder, why was I so overwhelmed and now I feel nothing? Because the mission is complete, and the will has abandoned you. Schopenhauer's entire philosophy of love is built upon this dramatic but systematic structure. Yes, you couldn't forget them, because there was an individual who could only exist with them, only through that match. The will desired it, and when they are gone, the task is considered incomplete. That's why we feel as though something is missing deep inside. The pain of separation and longing is sometimes disproportionate, because the longing isn't just for a love, but for an unrealized mission of the species. So this pain is not just yours. It is the absence of what was supposed to be born from you. It is the mourning of your unborn child. Maybe no matter what they do, you can't leave them. Maybe they keep hurting you, yet you stay or want to be with them. This can be compared to a mother who cannot leave her child no matter what they do, because it is not the person in front of you that you can leave, it is your unborn child. So what should we do if we are suffering from heartbreak? According to Schopenhauer, heartbreak is not just a pain of the heart. It is the emptiness left within us by the unfulfilled will of the species. That is why it can't be reasoned away with logic, it can only be softened with insight. First, we must realize that this pain is mourning a real loss. But that loss is not the loved one, it is the absence of the being who was supposed to be born with them. Therefore, the first thing to do is to understand the nature of this pain. When the pain overtakes you, realize that it belongs to the great mission of the species. That awareness pulls you out of personal suffering and gives you the wisdom of being part of a universal structure. You begin to feel not like a victim, but like a part of the system, and that helps heal you, because recognizing an illusion is the first step to escaping it. And then, say goodbye not to them, but to the being who was meant to be born from you, because the mourning is not for them, but for a life that never happened. The mission was not completed, yes, but now you know why you burned, and knowing doesn't close the wound, but it makes it bearable. But remember, all of this is Schopenhauer's view. Finally, let's touch on one more thing. What if the child was born, but there was still a separation? Why do we still suffer heartbreak in that case? If you're someone who got divorced, are we talking about your pain here? Schopenhauer makes a very important distinction. The will only focuses on the birth of the individual. That means nature has completed its duty, but the individual, you, may still remain trapped in the illusion. Because love is not only biological, it is also a mental illusion. And that illusion doesn't always go away, even if the child is born. The will retreats, but you remain in the void it left, maybe in your habits. At this point, the pain comes from the mental resistance of the individual. The more the lover resists the will, the more tragedy they experience. So if you believe love is eternal, nature completes its job and leaves, but you continue to burn. In the opposite case, when no child was born, Schopenhauer is much clearer. Heartbreak is the mourning of the unborn individual. This shows that love is not just an emotional issue, it is also an unfulfilled command of nature. That awareness is the first step in understanding heartbreak and dealing with it. Send this video to someone who says, "Why can't I forget them?" In the next video, we'll answer more questions that will empower you. Knowledge is power. Subscribe, follow, hold the power in your hands. What do we know?